Good evening, everyone, online and at Tushita. Welcome to this session. We will start with 5 minutes of meditation, of calm abiding, shamatha meditation, single-pointed meditation. Since we have new people here, I will quickly introduce the instructions for calm abiding meditation. The first of the 4 instructions is to look at your body posture. Ideally, we are sitting in a posture of Buddha Vairochana, which is in 7 points. The most important point is for your body to be upright, for your back to be straight, your spine to be aligned. Ideally, we sit on the floor in a full lotus posture. If that is difficult, we can do half lotus, so simply cross-legged or Burmese style with one leg in front of the other. If we are sitting on a chair, it is just important not to lean back against the support of the chair, and also not to lean forward, whether we are sitting on the floor or on a chair. So the body to be upright, if possible the legs crossed, and the hands are in the concentration mudra. So basically the right hand is on the left hand and the 2 thumbs are slightly touching, and this rests at the lap. The shoulders are even and relaxed. The head is very slightly tilt forward, aligned with the spine. One important instruction as well is that the eyes should not be completely closed. They should be slightly opened, gazing 1 or 2 meters in front of you. But we are not paying attention to what our eyes are apprehending. It is the mental consciousness that meditates. And one of the tips of the ancient masters is to reduce the production of saliva. We put our tongue touching the upper palate behind the upper teeth. So this is the first instruction, the posture for meditation. The second instruction is your focal point, your object of meditation. If you are familiar with shamatha meditation, calm abiding meditation, you can use the object you are the most familiar with. And if you are not familiar with this meditation, what I would suggest is that you visualize a tiny dot of white light between your nose and your upper lip. Very small, about 1 or 2 millimeters in diameter, and place all your attention there. The third instruction is that during meditation, errors arise. So it is important to identify them. The mind gets distracted either with excitement, for example, thinking about the past and the future, or the mind gets distracted with lethargy, dullness, mental sinking, like falling asleep. So identifying these errors of meditation, the 4th instruction is to apply the antidotes, the remedies against these errors, which are introspection and mindfulness. Introspection meaning constantly we should have a part of our mind checking. Am I meditating? Am I concentrated on my focal point, on my mental object? If not, if I notice that my mind has wandered, then I make the effort with mindfulness to bring back the mind onto the object and try to remain there for the duration of the meditation. And I do this every time. Every time I notice with introspection that my mind has wandered, that I have lost the object, I bring back the mind onto the object. So we will do this for about 5 minutes. Gently come out of the meditation. So in order to make listening to this Dharma talk a Dharma activity, we will try to generate a Mahayana motivation. We'll try to generate the motivation of bodhicitta, recognizing that since beginningless time we have been taking birth again and again due to the power of our karma and afflictions. At the moment we have the fortune to be born as a human, but still we can see in our experiences that not all of them are pleasant. And we don't have much choice over the experiences that we are making. We can consider countless times in the past we have also been reborn in less favorable states, such as, for example, the animal realm. And we can clearly see how animals, for example, in the wild, are constantly living in fear of being eaten by bigger, stronger animals. We can also infer the suffering of animals that humans are considering as food, how they are spending their lives living together in small places, waiting to be sent to the slaughterhouse. Try to generate a sense of compassion for yourself. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and try to extend that wish to all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And try to generate a sense of responsibility. I have the fortune to be born as a human being. I have met the teachings of the Buddha. Therefore, I will make effort to study those teachings, contemplate and meditate on them in order to transform my mind and eliminate all the obscurations to liberation and the obscurations to omniscience. By achieving full awakening, the state of omniscience, I will be able to guide sentient beings perfectly, to benefit them, and to lead them to their own cessation of suffering. Try to generate this most beautiful mind of bodhicitta. May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all my dear mother sentient beings. And with this motivation in mind, we will first recite the prayers that are normally appearing on your screen and here at Tushita on the screen as well. I hope it's readable. The projector is not so so good. Can you read?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, by my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Soke Chonam La Jonsho Bado Dagne Gyalso Che Dagi Jinso Gibe Tsognam Ki Jora Pencher Sangye Jubara Sho Sangye Chodam Soke Chonam La Jonsho Bado Dagne Gyalso Che Dagi Jinso Gibe Tsognam Ki Jora Pencher Sangye Jubara Sho. So for the next 4 weeks, I'll be giving 4 Dharma talks here at Tushita and online. Welcome to all who joined us in person and online. This session will be quite introductory. We will look at what is the mind, where it comes from, and how it can be transformed, the potential that this mind has, so that in the coming weeks, next Monday, we will look at the 3 different scopes, the 3 different types of practitioners, the 3 different motivations that the followers of the Buddha have in order to transform their minds. And in 2 weeks, we will look at the mind of bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, that we briefly meditated on today a few minutes ago. And then in 3 weeks, we will look at the, the mind of the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom mind. Every Tuesday as well, we'll have pujas here at Tushita. Tomorrow will be Medicine Buddha Puja, and next week will be Lama Chupa Guru Puja Tsok, which we are very welcome to join. And also for the next few weeks on Saturdays, this Saturday and also on 11 November, we have the recitation of the Golden Light Sutra, the Sutra of Golden Light, that is especially recommended by our late spiritual director, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, in order to pacify wars and conflicts around the world, but also for ourselves to accumulate a lot of merit and purify a lot of negative karma by reciting these sutras of the Buddha. So I would just like to make clear that I am just a student of the Buddhist philosophy. So I don't have all the answers. I'll just be parroting whatever I've learned from my teachers. So you're welcome to ask questions, but please bear in mind that I might not have the answer. So I will let you know and maybe guide you to people who are more qualified to answer these questions. And feel free to actually interrupt me if something is not clear, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, or if you have a question that is directly related to what we are talking about. And at the end, we'll try to leave some time for more diverse questions that are not necessarily related to what we are talking about. So first, I would like to ask you, people who are online, I think you have the option to unmute yourselves and speak. And of course, at Tushita, please just, I would like to ask you what for you is the mind? What do you think is the mind, or Yeah, the mind. What is the mind for you? Any idea?
Mind is a reflection of the desires, how you want to live your life. It's a reflection of basically your personality.
What is your name?
My name is Anil.
Anil is saying here at Tushita that mind is a reflection of our desires, personality. Any other ideas? I see some people are writing in the chat. Roy is saying it is consciousness. Any other ideas? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Normally you're able to unmute yourself on Zoom and speak out.
Mind is actually part of the energy system of the body. Like we have a physical body and we have an energy body, the two types. And mind falls under the energy body because we cannot, it does not exist physically as an organ or as an organ of the body that we can touch and or we can see, but it does exist as an energy body, I would say. And I don't know what is the right term to use, but it falls under the energy part of the body, and it can feel. I mean, the mind can feel, and the way we have feelings, emotions, and all that is part of the mind. I think that's my definition of the mind. It's
all right, thank you very much. So the kind of energy body, right? Not a physical body. And Apurva is saying on the chat, the inner world we experience. So let us have a look together. What is the mind? So we have, for example, the Christians and the Hindus. You know, they talk about the soul or the Atman, which is, am I pronouncing this correctly? Atman? Yeah. Which is also non-physical, as you were saying, but is characterized as, you know, being kind of permanent, like a permanent sense of soul, I, self, that is also independent, you know. But then if we look at the materialistic view, in general, what, for example, some scientists would say is that the mind would be the brain or the genes or DNA, you know. That's how they would talk about consciousness. But the point of view of the Buddha is quite different. It is actually none of these two. The Buddha is not talking about a soul. Hello, welcome. He's not talking about a soul. The Buddha is not talking about an Atman, and he's not talking either about not connecting the mind with the brain. For the Buddha, actually, as Apurva was suggesting, the mind is actually the all of our inner experiences. So, for example, our thoughts, our feelings. We can also talk about our intellect, our awareness, our emotions, our intuition, our instinct. For the Buddha, all of these fall under the category of consciousness or mind, that are actually synonymous, that are referring to the same thing. All of our inner experiences fall under this category. And for the Buddha, there is not one atom of our being that is created by a superior being, such as a god, or even by Buddha himself, or whoever. From the experience of the Buddha, it is the mind. This is the mind. which is also not created by our parents, and therefore we cannot really blame our parents for the experiences that we have. Of course, our body, physical body, comes from our parents. It has been, created by the union of the egg and sperm at the time of conception. So we have, yes, this body thanks to our parents. But for the Buddha, the mind doesn't come from our parents. We'll look together where it comes from. So just to make it clear how the Buddha defines the mind. So as I was saying, a synonymous is consciousness. And as somebody was saying on Zoom, it is formless, not physical, not physically substantial. And the actual definition of mind is clear, that which is clear and knowing, like a clear and knowing agent. And the Buddha says, it is not created, it is beginningless, and it is endless. Maybe a bit too dark. It's very dark. Is it readable? Yes? So if we look at the definition that the Buddhist scholars are giving us, mind is that which is clear and knowing. So clear, what do we mean by clear? It is actually the entity of the mind, the nature of the mind. There are different ways of explaining this word clear. Clear in the sense of not obstructive because it is not physical, but also clear because it reflects objects like a mirror or a still lake. And also clear in the sense that it is naturally free from impurities, what we call obscurations. These are adventitious, they are not intrinsically part of our mind. So this shows us this clear aspect, the fact that our mind is naturally free, in essence it's free from impurities, obscurations. It shows the potential of our minds, what we call Buddha nature, or Tathagata Garbha in Sanskrit. Then if we look at the second part of the definition, this knowing agent. So knowing is the function of the mind, it's characteristic, meaning that the objects appear to our consciousness, our consciousnesses know the objects that they are apprehending. But then if the mind is not created by a superior God, by the Buddha, by anyone, and also if it doesn't come from our parents, the question comes, where does the mind come from? Does anybody online or here at Tushita have an idea where the mind comes from?
As your thought says, it's beginningless.
Beginningless. So it doesn't come from anywhere.
It's continuum.
It's a continuum. Online, any idea where does the mind come from? On Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can share on the chat as well. I'll try to read the chat. So clearly, we cannot say that the mind comes from nothing either, right? It's not created by a superior God. It doesn't come from our parents, or then where does it come from? We cannot say it comes from nothing. Let me read the chat. Okay, we have experts here on the chat who are saying Roy and Minoti. By the way, today is Minoti's birthday. Happy birthday, Minotila. Who are saying the mind comes from previous moments of the mind itself, from previous moments of mind. So this is what the Buddha is explaining, that everything we see, experience, apprehend in the universe has a continuity. It comes from causes and conditions. Yash here was talking about a continuum, and online we are talking about previous moments of mind. So if you look, for example, in front of you online or here at Tushita, if you look at this computer or this cup. So for example, the computer, we can see, right, that it is made from plastics, metals, and so forth. And this cup as well, we can't say it suddenly appeared, in and of itself. That would be absurd, no? So for the mind, the consciousness, it's the same thing. The Buddha tells us that consciousness, as Roy and Minotila were saying, consciousness comes from a prior moment of consciousness. And we call it, as you were saying, the mental continuum that has no beginning, as you were saying, and no end. So if we look, for example, I tried to explain that visually, if you look at the present moment of mind, moment zero of the consciousness, where does it come from? It comes from the previous moment -1. And this -1 moment of consciousness, where does it come from? From the previous moment of consciousness, -2. And this -2 moment, previous moment of consciousness, where does it come from? It comes from the previous moment of consciousness, and so on and so forth, without a beginning. This is what the Buddha teaches us. For Christians, for example, the soul, I think it's the same for Hindus, the soul has a beginning, since it is the creation of God, right? But our mind, if we look for a beginning to our consciousness, for a first moment of mind, if we think, for example, that it was created at the time of birth or at the time of conception, when the egg and sperm met, or if we think that, if we consider reincarnation and we think there must have been a first moment of mind, for example, 50, 100 lifetimes ago, it doesn't actually make sense, because if we did find a first moment of consciousness, then we would also find what caused it. And what caused it? A previous moment of consciousness. And therefore, the point of view of the Buddha is that the mind has no beginning. Then we can investigate the materialistic view. Is the mind the brain, or is the mind different from the brain? So I think many scientists would agree that the mind is the brain. This is the materialistic view. And I would like to do a little experiment with you to, kind of understand the Buddha's point of view that is different from the materialistic approach. And I would like to request you to, in your mind, think of the last time you went to India Gate. What are you seeing? Probably seeing something like this, right? Then if we ask scientists that claim that mind is brain, while you are thinking about India Gate, if they are looking at your brain, what they will see is something like this. They will measure the activity of your brain, they will see brain waves and so forth. But these are very different from our thoughts, right? They're the thoughts that are actually going on in our minds that are not physical. These thoughts are not physical. Our mind is not physical, isn't it? So scientists can see these waves, but they don't see our thoughts. We are seeing India Gate in our mind. Scientists are not seeing that. We experience these thoughts in our minds, but we don't see these brain waves. So these brain waves and our thoughts are not identical. So you most probably have heard that scientists saying that nothing vanishes, disappears, that everything transforms. Look, for example, at our body. It doesn't appear without a cause. It has a continuity. It comes from the egg and sperm at the time of conception, and at the time of death, the body doesn't suddenly disappear either. It is going to decompose over time. It will transform. The atoms of our body over time will transform into some kind of energy, and that energy will again become atoms. So therefore, the particles that compose our body will never really disappear, will never really vanish. So if at the physical level we have that conclusion, we can infer that at the mental level, this logic also applies. So before having this current body, the Buddha teaches us that our mind was incorporated into another body. And after we die again, because of the karma we have accumulated since beginningless time due to our mental afflictions, such as, for example, desire, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and so on and so forth. Because of these mental afflictions, we are constantly accumulating all sorts of karmas. And these karmas are causes that bring about results that lead to effects. And so because of that, our mind again and again is subject to rebirth in other bodies. So this is the idea of reincarnation or rebirth. And you might have seen this image that I'm sharing on the screen of the Wheel of Life that you often see, at the entrance of monasteries, that kind of illustrates this, illustrates samsara, our taking rebirth again and again due to our karmas and afflictions. Actually, next week we will look more detail into this Wheel of Life. We'll explore all the different, things that are depicted in this painting. And then one important point: what is the nature of the mind? What is Buddha nature? Our potential to become fully awakened Buddhas. In Sanskrit, it is called Tathagata Karpa, maybe. Not too sure how to pronounce Sanskrit well. So we often have, existential questions. We ask ourselves, who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Why am I here? What role am I playing, on this planet? And for the Buddha, the answer is simple. The goal is to liberate ourselves from, we could say, our mental perturbations, delusions, afflictions, and all obscurations, so that we might apprehend reality as it is and therefore be liberated from suffering, to not have unpleasant experiences, and then to remove even more mental obscurations that we call cognitive obscurations, to achieve the state of full awakening, the state of a Buddha, the state of omniscience, in order to be able to benefit and guide countless sentient beings who are also subject to this cycle of rebirth, samsara. So Buddha, what does Buddha mean? It's a Sanskrit word which literally means like fully awaken, a consciousness that is fully developed, a mind that has achieved all qualities, that doesn't have anything left to be perfected. It is a mind, a being, a consciousness that has reached perfection due to being liberated, due to being purified from all adventitious stains or obscurations, all negative states of mind, all obscurations to peerless happiness, and all obscurations to omniscience, full awakening. It is a bit like, to illustrate what Buddha nature is, you can think of a moment when you were a young kid, going on a walk with one of your parents, for example, in a forest or something, or park, and on the floor you find a seed, for example, an acorn, or it's also called an oak nut, and asking your parents, what is this? So one of the answers they could give is that this acorn, this oak nut, if all the conditions are gathered, at some point it will transform into an oak tree. So what is this acorn in reality? Well, it has the potential, it is a potential to become an oak tree. It is an oak tree in potential, right? And the Buddha tells us that it is the same with our consciousness. Its real nature is a mind that is completely developed, a Buddha.
I can ask,
Please.
is the mind constantly changing? So, based on your experiences, the mind is not static, it keeps changing. And, so when we talk of Buddha nature, that's reaching a particular goal, but because it keeps constantly changing, how can we achieve Buddha nature? Because that seems like an end.
Right.
While the mind constantly is evolving.
So the question is, for those who are online, I guess you didn't hear. The mind is constantly changing. So the state of a Buddha sounds a bit like a final unchanging result, right? Achievement. So how is it possible? It's a very good question. Thank you. So, you know, as I was saying at the beginning, unlike the Christians or the Hindus who kind of define the soul as being unchanging, like being kind of solid from life to life, it is always the same, or in the afterlife, or whatever they believe in. For the Buddha, the mind is, as you were saying, constantly changing. It is impermanent. And we can see it in our experience, right? We always have different thoughts, different emotions, and it is constantly changing. Well, I cannot talk from experience, right? I'm not a Buddha, but you know, I think in the mind of a Buddha as well, you know, constantly the Buddha is engaged. The Buddhas, actually, we are talking about countless Buddhas, they are engaged in helping others. So, you know, putting together the skillful means to help others, to guide others. So constantly they are also, you know, apprehending different things. Their minds are not static. And if yes, this Buddha nature is a kind of a permanent phenomena, the nature of our mind, and has a potential for our mind to become purified, yet at the time of being a Buddha, I think the Buddha still, you know, apprehends different phenomena. For example, the Buddha could be thinking of, you know, an animal that is about to be sent to the slaughterhouse. The Buddha could be thinking of a human being who is experiencing difficulties and has the potential, like his karma is ripening to receive some teachings in order to transform his mind. So the Buddha would manifest, you know, whatever is necessary for that person to, so that person to transform their mind. So we can see also that then the Buddha is constantly, you know, having compassion for others, doing whatever is necessary to help others. And his mind is actually apprehending all phenomena simultaneously. Actually, a Buddha, we can say that it has two wings, you know. One would be an incredible sense of empathy, an infinite compassion for all beings, as if all beings, you know, this compassion, feeling like almost as if all beings were part of ourselves, feeling, you know, pain for others as much as we do for ourselves. And a spontaneous, uncontrived wish to always be perfectly beneficial to others. And the second wing, we could say, is a wisdom that is fully developed. We literally call it omniscience, a mind that knows all phenomena and therefore has the skillful means to help beings who are trapped, you know, in their karmic appearances and the resultant experiences that they are making due to the karmas they have accumulated. So the Buddha tells us that if we possess a mind, then we have the potential to reach this state and know all phenomena of the past, all the phenomena of the present, and all the phenomena of the future. Our mind has this potential. Once we purify our consciousness from all afflictive and cognitive obscurations, then we will be, in touch with reality. We will be aligned with reality. We won't have any more, kind of feelings of anger. We'll be kind of pure love, and pure wisdom, apprehending things as they actually exist, not solidly, inherently real. So the Buddha says that at the moment we do not perceive reality as it is because of all the mental pollution that is there in us. And a third quality that the Buddha has is perfect power, perfect strength. We could call it omnipotence even. The Buddha can manifest whatever is necessary to be of benefit to beings. He can manifest an infinite number of bodies. So that is the Buddha, full awakening. It is not merely a pleasant feeling, it's much more than that. And the Buddha tells us that it is actually what we are in essence. It is our nature, like the acorn has the potential to turn into an oak tree. I don't know if I have answered your question.
You're saying that, I can just rephrase, what you're saying is that Buddha nature is not like an ultimate goal. It's basically a means to purify your mind and achieve a state which is constantly working for benefit of others, and it's pure. So the purity of the mind drives you to Buddha nature.
So I'll just repeat for the online participants who cannot hear you. Anil, right? What Anil is saying is that the Buddha nature is not a goal, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
And so what is the question? Can you repeat?
So my point was, if Buddha nature is not an ultimate goal.
An ultimate goal.
It's basically a means to an end.
A means to an end.
With others.
Compassionate with others.
So you can, in Buddha nature, your mind can reach a state where you're basically wanting to benefit others, all other sentient beings, and you're becoming pure and compassionate. So it's not something which is a constant. It can keep evolving. Buddha nature also can keep evolving.
Buddha nature can keep evolving.
Your mind can also keep evolving.
And your mind can keep evolving. Mm-hmm.
But it's not something which is static or...
It is not static, an end point.
An end.
Yes, indeed. Buddha nature is not an end point. Actually, it is with us. Since beginningless time, it is with us right now, Buddha nature. And it is indeed not a goal. The goal is Buddha, just like the oak nut, the acorn transforms into, an oak tree. So similarly, we have this Buddha nature now. It is the nature, what we are in essence. And because of that, we have the potential to transform into perfectly, developed, compassionate, wise beings, Buddhas. So basically, what is this Buddha nature? If we, I don't think I want to go into too much detail, but basically, if we look at our mind, the Buddha teaches us that all phenomena, our minds included, are devoid of intrinsic existence. They don't have an objective existence. They don't have an inherent intrinsic existence. They don't have a kind of a true existence. They don't exist from their own side, from the side of the object. There is not something solid there. And this also applies for our minds. So what we call the emptiness, of our minds allows the fact that they are not solidly real, that they are not intrinsically real. It allows for the mind to be transformed and purified of all, the mental pollution, of all these afflictions and obscurations that are adventitious, that are not part of our mind. So because our mind is empty of intrinsic existence, it has this potential to be transformed, to be purified. And to, it is a bit like if you find, I don't know, a precious stone, like let's say a diamond, and you find it covered in mud, the diamond in essence, is beautiful and shining, but it is covered in mud, so you don't see that, right? So similarly with our minds, if we remove that mud, the nature of the diamond has not been, altered by the mud. It has not changed. The mud has not changed the diamond. In essence, it is beautiful and shining and precious, right? So if you remove the mud, you have the diamond. You can make the experience with water. What is a river here in Delhi? What is
Yamuna.
Yamuna? It's quite polluted, right? We can say that. So if you take, let's say you take a bottle of water and you fill it with Yamuna's river water, you will see even in the bottle itself that, it's not transparent, it's not clear, right? It looks a bit, muddy or whatever it is that is in the river. But if you submit it, for example, if you put it in a reverse osmosis system, then you will end up with, I hope, pure H2O. So because the water in essence is pure H2O, right? The nature of the water is not these pollution, mud, and so forth. So it has the potential, just like the acorn, just like our mind, to transform into pure transform maybe is not the right word, but to be purified and be only pure H2O and nothing else, right? Similarly with our minds, they have this potential because it is their nature, and because they are empty of being solidly real, truly existent, objectively existent. Because of that, it allows for the mind to be transformed. Does that answer your question? Do you have any questions online? Feel free to ask. We'll also leave time, as I was saying at the end, I will try to leave some time for questions even that are not related to what we are directly talking about. Am I being clear? Does everybody understand what I'm talking about?
Just to add, I think the analogy of flowing river, I think, answers Guruji's answer. If we say that the mind is like water, but the flowing water is like the conscience, or the changing. So Buddha nature can be compared to water, and the flowing water can be called as the stream of consciousness. Maybe I think that's what I was referring to. There is one constant, but it changes. So that's what I understand with this analogy. Flowing water.
So yes, here Tushita is saying that we can also, use that analogy of the water, for the water to be our, Buddha nature. And then if you look at the river, like it has kind of the stream of the river, it would be like the continuum that is constantly changing, right? What is your name? Ishan. Is it clear what we are talking about? Yeah. Online, everybody happy? So, because of what we have been exploring, in Buddhism, the study of the mind is, the center of, what we are exploring and studying, because it is our mind that is going through all these experiences. It is our mind, that experiences the results of the negative karma we accumulate. It is our mind, that is afflicted, deluded, and creates these negative karmas. It is our mind that again and again, reincarnates, takes rebirth, and experiences different kinds of events. So why is it important to study the mind? So in a text called the Dhammapada, it says, mind is the chief and precedes them all. If with impure mind one acts or speaks, miseries follow, like a cart following the ox. Mind is the chief and precedes them all. If with pure mind one acts or speaks, happiness follows, like a shadow that never leaves. In the Abhidharma Kosha, Acharya Vasubandhu tells us, the diversity of the world arose from karmas, which in turn is the intention and its actions. Intention is the mental karma. What gives rise to by the intentions are physical and verbal actions. And Acharya Chandrakirti in the Madhyamika Avatara says, it is the mind itself that constructed the sentient world, as well as the utterly diverse container world. So the Buddha taught that all beings are produced from karma. Without mind, there can be no karma. So basically it is our mind, our consciousness that guides, our physical and verbal actions, whatever we do and say. Therefore, our mind is at the root of the karma we accumulate, the karma that results in everything we make the experience of. So Buddhists study the mind because it makes us understand how our deceptive minds make us suffer, how our delusions lead us to unpleasant experiences. And it is only by knowing our true enemy, that we can eliminate it. So we talk about a mental factor that is our true enemy. It is this apprehension that we think, this belief that we apprehend phenomena, including ourselves, as existing truly, objectively. And because of that, we feel that we are kind of the center of the universe. No, we feel more important than others. And, following that, all sorts of afflictions arise, such as attachment, jealousy, anger, pride, and so on and so forth. So in order to become a Buddha, it is essential to understand how our mind works, because these delusions, these, we call it here, mental actions, these mental afflictions, they make us, engage in physical and verbal actions that are, mostly non-virtuous. They make us accumulate negative karmas that result, in suffering states, different kinds of rebirths, different experiences. We have somebody writing on the chat. Okay, no questions. Feel free to ask questions. So in order to become a Buddha, it is essential to understand how our mind works. It is our mind, that is afflicted. And it is our mind itself that will allow us to become liberated and happy by eliminating our obscurations. By understanding the mind, understanding the root cause of the problem, what we call here our true enemy, this self-grasping ignorance that apprehends everything as being very solid out there, very inherently existing. By, using our mind to apprehend the opposite force of that we will look into more detail in 3 weeks, what we call the wisdom of emptiness. It is the direct opposite of that self-grasping ignorance. It is a wisdom mind, that apprehends reality as it is, that apprehends this absence of objectively, solidly, truly, inherently, independently existing phenomena. So by apprehending the absence of that, motivated by our wish, either to be liberated from suffering and pleasant experiences, or even better, our wish not only to be liberated from those, but also to be liberated from all mental blockages, obscurations, cognitive obscurations, our wish to be able to help all sentient beings to do that, motivated by then either renunciation, what we call, this wish to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, or bodhicitta, this wish to become a Buddha in order to help all sentient beings to do the same. Motivated by that, our mind apprehending reality as it is, being empty of objective existence, then we can purify these adventitious stains. And like the H2O, like the water that is polluted or the diamond that is covered in mud, slowly by apprehending reality as it is, this mud, dissolves, these impurities in the water are eliminated, purified. We abandon. It is a direct antidote to, since beginningless time, we have been apprehending phenomena as being solidly real, truly existent, and by meditating on the direct opposite of this ignorance, this wisdom that sees reality as it is, slowly we eliminate all our mental obscurations. So we can see the importance of the mind. Someone who has a lot of money and material wealth can be an unhappy person, right? The mental aspect is essential. The elimination of our mental perturbations is an inner process, a mental process that transforms our minds. If we want to be happy, it is therefore essential to know what is the mind, how it functions, how to transform it, and to understand where, how our experiences are created, where they come from, what makes us, experience the different results of our karmas. So I think I will not add too much material today for a first introductory session. I'll be welcoming questions. If you have more questions, please feel free to ask, even if it's not directly related to what we have been discussing. And next week we will be exploring, in more detail, the wheel of life that you were seeing on the screen earlier. How samsara in more detail comes into being, and we will explore the three types of motivations of Buddhist practitioners, what we call the three scopes. Those beings, who merely don't want to experience gross suffering in future lives. So those beings who will basically only refrain from doing negative actions, engaging in negative karmas, and will engage in positive actions in order to experience pleasant results in the future. This is the first scope. Then we'll explore the middle scope, those beings who not only want not to experience suffering results in the future, but only pleasant experiences, but those beings who want to be liberated from this vicious cycle once and for all, who want to, cut the root cause of samsara and be liberated to only experience the absence of suffering and not take rebirth again and again because of karma and afflictions. And then we'll also briefly look at the great scope, which is the beings who not only don't want to experience suffering in future lives, but also want to be liberated from samsara, not experience any kind of suffering anymore, but also want to achieve a state where they can benefit, can help and guide all other sentient beings to achieve the same result, to be liberated from suffering and become Buddhas themselves. So we'll look into that next week, and in 2 weeks we'll look into more detail at bodhicitta, this awakening mind, this mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta in Sanskrit. How to generate it. At the beginning of the session, we very briefly tried to meditate on it, but actually it has a systematic guided meditation, different steps that we have to go through in order to generate that mind. So we'll look into that in more detail. And finally, in 3 weeks, we will look more precisely what is the wisdom of emptiness, what is reality, what is this absence of objective, independent, intrinsic, inherent existence. All right. So feel free to ask questions. I see some comments on the chat. I'm not looking so much for comments, but please, if you have questions that are directly related or not, even if you have general questions about the teachings of the Buddha, or any question that you would like to ask, please take this opportunity.
Hi, I would like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
So this is actually more like from a practical life example that I've had, someone really close to me and who's really hurt me terribly. And I'm obviously in a state that I cannot be hurt terribly, but this happened. And and I know I believe in karma and all of that, and I've always given good vibes, and I actually try to say, God bless you, and I'm trying to forgive this person, but it's kind of getting really hard because I've been extremely hurt and my health has been hurt. So in this kind of a situation, what do we do more to kind of, let go? I'm really struggling with this. I'm not sure what should I do.
I'm not sure I really understood what you were saying. You were talking about some therapy. I'm not sure I understood correctly. The sound is not coming so good.
No, actually, I was talking about karma. That you mentioned about the karma, and the mind actually is actually responsible for all the karma that we accumulate. So I'm talking about a practical life experience where I know someone close to me who's really hurt me terribly recently, which is
someone who someone who what did you say?
So someone who's close to me
Yes.
actually hurt me terribly.
Oh, hurt you terribly. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And it's more like mental pain, and I've just been and I'm trying to forgive this person because I also believe that that someone has to have their own suffering to cause this kind of pain to anyone, and it's getting really hard for me to kind of forgive. So any examples that you can give? Yeah, because as a human being myself, my Buddha nature also tells me to forgive and let go. And obviously I'll maintain my distance. I don't want to be near this person because they can again cause harm to me, but I also want to let go and forgive. So what should I do in this situation to do that?
Okay, of course, I understand. Did you hear the question? Yes, good. Okay. So of course, yes, I think the first step, as you said, keep your distance, because eventually, if you play, if you're around fire, play with fire, eventually you will get burned, right? And I would like to answer your question with an illustration. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example. Since I think 1959, has left his home country of Tibet and found refuge here in India. His Holiness often says, that he has the same amount of compassion, if not more, for, the Chinese communists. Same amount of compassion that he has for his Tibetan people. Why? Because someone who is the victim, who is experiencing abuse, is actually exhausting, is making the experience of a karma that they accumulated in the past. So the negative action that was done in the past, the negative karma that was accumulated in the past, is ripening in the form of that experience, unpleasant suffering experience. So for example, what you have lived with that person, or what the Tibetans, have experienced with the Chinese, like, being tortured in the jails or something like that,
Yes.
So that karma has ripened, therefore it is exhausted, right? But the person who's making you, who's abusing you, is actually creating a fresh karma that in the future will ripen in an unpleasant experience. It will ripen as a suffering result. So therefore the Dalai Lama often says, that he has the same amount of compassion, if not more compassion, for the people who are harming the Tibetan than for the Tibetan themselves. So if we consider, karma, how, karma ripens, then, people who are hurting us, we can generate compassion for them in that sense, they are doing something negative. Therefore, if they don't purify, if they don't change their attitude, they will experience the results of that action in the form of unpleasant experiences, suffering. So we can have compassion for that, no? Wishing them not to experience that suffering in the future, like that. I don't know if I have answered your question.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Most welcome. Okay, so Roy is asking us on the chat that mind comes from its own previous moment. How can we gain conviction on this statement? Actually, in the scriptures, we can study that for a mind, for a consciousness to arise, we need 3 conditions. So let's take, for example, a mind that is my I consciousness, apprehending this cup. My eye seeing this cup, to make it simple. So there are 3 conditions. One is the object. This cup is one of the 3 conditions for this apprehension of my eye seeing this cup. First, I need an object, the cup. Second, I need what we call a sense power, a sense sphere, which is basically my sight, right? For my eye to apprehend this cup, I need the cup. I need my sight. If I'm blind, then I wouldn't be able to see this cup, apprehend it the way I apprehend it now. And the third condition for this consciousness to arise is a previous moment, of I consciousness. So the direct previous moment of my I consciousness apprehending this cup is my eye consciousness, for example, apprehending the cup or something else that I was looking at before, for example, my screen, or one of you here. How can we gain conviction in that? That is a very good question. I think we have to explore it, in our experience. And, there is also, research that is being done and has been published that can, help us gain conviction a little bit, but it's not, of course, then a direct, conviction from your own experience. But you can read, for example, I think there is one person called Ian Stevenson who researched, young kids, very young kids who had, who were claiming that they recalled who they were in their previous life. So it's kind of fascinating, So if you read this book, then you can kind of, infer that those kids, and you can infer that it applies to all of us, before being born in this life, their mind, was not created when they were born or in the womb, at the moment of conception. Their mind was, already having experiences before that. And similarly, research has been done on what we call near-death experiences, That is also fascinating. People who are declared clinically, dead, and like they stop breathing and all, they are declared dead by the doctors, and then they come back to life, after a few minutes or whatever, and then they describe, their experience in that state of near-death experience. They describe that they see things, or that they feel things. So we can infer also that at the time of death, also the mind doesn't stop, that, continues and has different experiences. So I'm not sure that really helps you gain conviction that mind comes from a previous moment of mind, but I invite you to investigate this question further. Or if anyone, here or online would like to, share how we can help Roy to gain conviction in that, please feel free also to share your knowledge or your ideas.
So I want to talk about an experience I had today. I had a carpenter doing some woodwork for the last 2 weeks, and he, along with his people, had come and was doing work. Today I had to settle his accounts. So he said, let me do the measurements, and then I'll multiply the measurement with the rate, and then come up with the final value of what you have to pay me. And I have been paying in advance. So then he gave me a rate, a per square foot rate, which was 3 times the market rate.
Wow.
Now, in my heart, I said, let me check with someone. So I immediately did a call to check with someone what is the rate. And I put it on the speakerphone so that he can also hear.
Right.
So he heard, because that person said, no, this is. So I didn't tell him the rate. I told him, you tell me what is the rate. And he gave me 1/3 the price. Now, a part of me felt that he is trying to cheat me.
Yes.
But then I said, if I would have been foolish and paid him whatever he asked for, he would have gone as a happy person.
Right.
But because I was aware and I knew someone who could guide me, I paid him his due. So I said, okay, this is the rate, I'll even increase it by these many rupees and I'll pay you little more than what he told me. But I wanted somewhere, I think, my mind, there was a conflict.
Right.
One part of my mind said that he's trying to cheat you, so you should be rude to him. But then I said, no, this will only complicate matters, and let me, accept, because he's also there to make his living. So my question was really that sometimes the mind, you can be naive, and then someone can take you, for granted and do things whereby they are cheating you.
Yes.
That was like cheating. If you are taking 3 times, but then a part of me said, no, I should be compassionate to the person, and I should pay him. So in fact, I paid him 20,000 extra.
Right.
Whatever the amount came, in that he had done a lot of small jobs, and I paid him some money so that he doesn't go as an unhappy man.
Right.
And I wanted him to compensate him because he was poor. They are not rich. They are also there to make a living.
Right.
But what I wanted to say was that I think sometimes it's how you use your mental faculties to deal with situations where you have to protect yourself, but at the same time be compassionate to others and pay them their dues, because they're also here to make money and earn a living, just like I'm trying to.
Very good. So what Anilji is saying here is that he has an example that he has experienced today, right?
Yeah.
Of a carpenter who tried to charge him thrice, the price of the actual work that he did. And Anilji contacted another carpenter, to guesstimate, what is the actual due amount that should be paid. And the amount is a third of what this carpenter was requesting Anilji to pay. So Anilji is saying a part of himself wanted to, pay, the amount the guy was asking to make him happy. But also, what actually Anilji did is he paid the actual price plus a very good tip, right? To make the guy happy, because he's also there to make a living. And I think, you want to be compassionate, make the guy happy. So, but if we look at it, being compassionate, if you pay thrice the amount, short term, the guy will be very happy, right? He will be the best customer. Maybe he'll go and buy something, some new iPhone or whatever, or, have a good food or whatever. He'll have temporary pleasure thanks to you. But if you want to be wisely compassionate, I think you did the right thing. Because if somebody fools you, cheats you, lies to you, deceives you, they are accumulating negative karma, right? Lying is a non-virtuous action that results in, unpleasant experiences. Like somebody who lies, in the future, people will not believe that person, people will cheat that person, people, will deceive that person as well. And, it has even the potential to propel us into lives that are very unpleasant, lower rebirths, So I think what you did is exactly what is called wise compassion. You don't want the guy to accumulate the karma of lying, cheating, deceiving, fooling. So you tell him, hey, I know the price, this is the actual rate, this is the market rate, so I'm paying you that, you're not cheating me. But because I'm compassionate, I'm also giving you a tip, for you to enjoy. So not only you kind of prevented this guy from accumulating negative karma, you also yourself accumulated the positive karma of generosity, due to your compassion. Yeah. So I think this was the right thing to do.
One part of me said, oh, he's cheating you, so you should not give him. But then my other part said, he's also poor. He is there to make some money. So whatever extra work he did, I kind of gave him a nice tip in that.
Very good. Yeah.
He feels satisfied, and he went back happy.
Of course.
I not
20,000 rupees tip, of course he would be happy, right? It's not the 3 times the price he was requesting, but still, yeah. All right, amazing. So it is nearly 8 o'clock, so we should conclude. Yes, I think somebody wants to ask something.
Yes.
Please.
Can I take a minute, Nico?
Please, I'm listening.
Okay. Sorry, I maybe I should have brought it up earlier, but then I didn't want to interrupt the other speakers. That's why. Sorry, Nico.
Please.
Nico, I just have this query, which is, I just feel because of perhaps previous bad experiences, I've become very distrustful of people, very, very distrustful. And and I don't like what is happening to me, because I don't like the feeling of living in this constant state of fear and distrust of people. And what is to be done about it? This constant state of chronic terror, this sense of suspicion and distrust that this person is only going to hurt me and cheat me up and do as much damage as he can to me. But it's not a happy thought, Nico. And it does a lot of damage to your mental health eventually. And is there help for it in Buddhist philosophy?
This is a very, very difficult question, I feel.
Let's put it this way. Is there help for fear? If you feel a sense of fear and dread, Nico, can Buddhist philosophy help with it? Do we have answers? At any point?
You know, as we were exploring, you know, whatever we experience doesn't come, you know, out of the blue. It is a result of actions we have performed in the past. So, you know, the Buddha teaches us that these actions that we have performed in the past, these karmas we have accumulated, we have engaged in, they can be purified. You know, we were explaining about Buddha nature, how our mental obscurations are not in the nature of our mind, they are adventitious, they can be eliminated, they can be purified. Similarly, all of the negative things we have done in the past that ripen in the form of unpleasant experiences, difficult lives, or people cheating us, people lying to us, all this can be purified, the Buddha teaches us. Some of the practices that are recommended to purify negative karmas is to engage in the what we call the four opponent powers, to, you know, imagine, you know, contemplate in this life what negative actions you have engaged in, and generate a sense of regret for these actions. You know, regret in the sense, I don't want to experience the suffering results of these actions. This is the power of regret, like a healthy sense of regret, not guilt that doesn't serve any purpose, you know? So then there is the power of reliance, the power of refuge, you know, relying on the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as, you know, the three jewels being able to help us. And how? By applying the power of remedy. And the Buddha gives us different remedies that we can engage in to purify our negative karmas. For example, reciting sutras, which is what we are doing here, for example, on Saturdays, this Saturday and on 11 November, what we did also last Saturday. This helps us purify a lot of negative karma in the context of the four opponent powers, as well as, you know, engaging in practices of, for example, reciting names of Buddhas, for example, Medicine Buddha, like we will do tomorrow here at Tushita, Medicine Buddha. These are beings who in the past, you know, pledged that whoever, you know, calls their names, prays to them, they will, in these degenerated times, they will come and help and benefit, you know. So this is just an example. There are, you know, countless Buddha's names we can recite, and mantra recitation we can engage in. One that is very famous in Buddhism is Vajrasattva practice. You know, practitioners, they accumulate, in the context of these four opponent powers, they accumulate a lot of mantra recitation of Vajrasattva that comes along with a visualization that by relying on this Buddha, our karma gets purified, you know, and developing conviction in that helps. And then the fourth power is the power of restraint, you know, to make a commitment, to make a kind of a promise, not to engage in those negative actions in the future. You know, these are the four opponent forces of, you know, the four constituents of a karma. So if we apply the opposites of the, you know, when we engage in something non-virtuous, we have a basis, like an object, a person that we want to harm, for example. We have the intention to harm. We have the action of harming, and the result, the person being harmed. So we apply the opposite of that to purify our minds. And so these practices have the power to limit, you know, the multiplication of this karma. That is why Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for example, was advising students to recite some mantras every day, you know, for a few seconds or minutes, to, you know, at least stop the karma from increasing, you know, because karma constantly multiplies and is purified. But it is also said that, for example, in the Tibetan tradition, you know, many people engage in what we call a Vajrasattva retreat. So the Tibetans, they would do that in 1 month. We, on the other hand, tend to take something like 3 months to accumulate 100,000 recitations of this mantra, 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva in the context of the 4 opponent powers. It is said that this retreat, you know, this mantra recitation has the power to purify all the negative karma we have accumulated in the past, including, you know, the 5 heinous crimes, like killing one's father, one's mother, you know, creating a schism, killing a being who is an aharat, you know, a being who is liberated, or drawing the blood from a Buddha. These actions that have an immediate suffering result, that propel us immediately into a lower rebirth. So this retreat even has the power to purify that and to purify all the negative actions we have accumulated towards our teachers as well. So engaging in such practices, I think, can really be of benefit for you not to experience, you know, this fear and this result of being fooled or lied to and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think it is very difficult, you know. I'm also personally making the experience of, you know, people lying and so forth. What I think the lamas would also advise is to, you know, study the teachings of the Buddha in a systematic way, you know, to engage in studies, to understand how the mind works, to engage in those practices of purification, and to, yeah, try to limit the ripening of these negative karmas. Okay, so we will dedicate the merits that we have accumulated by contemplating, by thinking about the teachings of the Buddha, so that we might quickly, you know, free our minds from these negative karmas, these afflictive minds, these delusions, the root cause being our self-grasping ignorance. We will dedicate the merits so that we can do that quickly, eliminate all afflictive but as well as cognitive obscurations, so that quickly, very quickly, we might be able to benefit countless sentient beings, to lead them to peerless happiness. So we can read together. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, on all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who is also completely empty of existing from my own side. Is it readable from the screen? Yeah, the projector is not so good. Okay, good. May the supreme mind of bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase forevermore. Due to all the merits of the 3 times collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, and the numberless sentient beings, may all wars, sickness, famine, and economic problems in the world, and all dangers of earth, water, fire, and wind be pacified immediately, and may perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's heart and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time, and may the sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. We can also pray for the long and healthy life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for all his wishes to be spontaneously fulfilled. So we'll read at the bottom in English. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. We can also pray for the swift return of our precious spiritual director, who showed the aspect of passing away in April, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so that we may very quickly find his reincarnation, so that he may continue to guide us and lead the organization, the FPMT, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, which Tushita Meditation Center Delhi is part of. Let me check the chat. Oh, Ashima could not read. I hope it was readable for you, the screen. All right, thank you very much. Have a beautiful evening, and I will see you tomorrow for the Medicine Buddha Puja, the same time 6:30. On Saturday for the recitation of the Golden Light Sutra, Saturday at 2 p.m. And this kind of format, Dharma Talk, the next one will be next Monday at 6:30 as well. So we will explore the three scopes, the three different kinds of attitudes. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful evening. Bye-bye.